I believe, and I believe this from going back to when I was an undergrad, that the environment is actually probably a lot more important than the classes.
Mm-hmm.
That you need to build a space where all these things are,
Mm-hmm.
people can get access to them,
Right.
and then people will go to it and use it, and they'll kind of work with each other,
Uh-huh.
and you'll get, I hate to use the term synergies because it's such a,
Uh-huh.
term, but that idea of just making a creative environment where you can work,
Mm.
I think is far more important than what class you take or what you get out of it, or
Right.
what
Right.
what we're going to cover or what software we use or hardware.
Sure.
Um,
I thought maybe what we could do is maybe I'll share my screen, and if you want to uh, maybe
comment on?
comment a little bit, and I can pause the video, and then you can maybe
Sure.
say some things, and then I'll splice it up maybe
Okay.
as
Yeah,
we go through. Does that make sense?
that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
I like, yeah. Let's start with Christian. It's this is such an interesting story.
This is not bad. The painting.
Yeah, this is beautiful
Yeah.
actually. Because this shows some of the process. So I'm going to play this, and
Christian always has this very dark kind of H.R. Geiger aesthetic, and I don't think he even realizes he has it. It's funny, like I've seen him working on things that are like, multi-layered caves with like faces and things coming out of them and people running through them in 2 dimensions. And I don't think he realizes it's all part of the same theme.
mm,
That it's all, it's dark, it's almost abstract. A lot of it's very sci-fi orientated.
mhm.
But it's really impressive work. I think there's something deeper in it for him. I don't know that he knows what that is. I know I don't know, but I think it all does. All of Christian's work connects together in an interesting way. That's always been my feelings.
And now he's a third-year nursing student in the Arctic.
In the Arctic, yes, yes, yes. He changes paths. Um, he's very sincere in what he pursues. I mean, there's no question about that.
Very much so. No, he's
Yeah, yeah. This the space and the like kind of this. It's funny. I don't think he thinks any of those particular movies are great or anything like Aliens or anything like that. But his work is so involved with them.
hmm
I think this was some of the VR stuff too. That this actually worked as something you could fly through in virtual reality. And the amount of detail for one guy putting it all together is just unreal. Like that's
staggering.
yeah.
Staggering.
We had a funny on this piece because the thing about the game engine is you have to put gravity in it.
Mm.
You don't have to, but I mean, you have it so things fall, and we were trying to figure out where's it coming from, and he was never that clear about it. Yeah, it's amazing work.
He made this at BCC, or is this from
This
FIT?
I think this is his FIT, what he graduated with.
I think so.
Yeah, which
so.
they used in several demos because it's such a
Yeah, there it is. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's a stunning piece.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Let's see. Let's go back up and let's try. How about Andrew Gelman? This is it's a piece that has a sense of humor to it.
Yes. Always drawing characters, and they were like interesting characters. The only book I remember telling them. because he had all the material to do a TV show, and he did a TV show.
I believe he showed this pilot at the Hoboken Film Festival in 2019.
It's a great piece. It's amazing when you think he's one person who can produce this. I mean, it's sort of the opposite of what I was saying earlier, that idea of that one person's vision. But this really is his vision very much. Another friend of mine, another graduate, tried to push him to make sure that he kept it the way he wanted to keep it. And it really does read like a good cartoon. The idea of animal heaven is also very funny too, an animal god.
Yes, this is a really twisted piece, and I really like it.
Yes, yes.
Let's see. We'll talk. Actually, Ali Ashkar Jamali added a couple of pieces that he didn't originally include, but this is his demo reel, which is really strong.
Yeah. He's really something. He
Just
went from, sort of student who didn't care that much to someone who's producing the highest level commercial work imaginable. I mean, like, I hate to be that, the term would be that, shucks about it, but it really is a very good example of what the community college can do.
Mm-hmm.
That you could take people who probably never liked any of their K through 12, and then they can find something that just maybe they do like, and maybe they can latch onto it and be really successful. And that's LE, certainly.
Yeah, there's some really sophisticated work here for some important companies as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, he's working at the highest levels of the advertising industry,
Yeah.
That's what New York City is,
Yeah, this was a great piece too.
Yes.
And I actually like this one very much.
Oh, this drawing. Yeah, that's interesting.
So you're seeing some of this stuff for the first time too,
Oh
probably.
yeah, no, I am.
Uh-huh.
I used to work on stuff like this. I mean, at a
Uh-huh.
slightly different way. Like I did film restoration, then I used to do effects in ads. It's funny. A lot of what I did was fixes. The funny thing about fixes is nobody's supposed to know you did them. So
This is a piece he just sent me for Google.
this isn't even released yet, is it?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think
This
I've
is
even
their
heard of it.
this is their ad for setting up Zoom conferencing. It's a complete kit for doing what we're doing now.
Wow, wow.
And
It's
he did,
actually really interesting. Huh.
so he was did the lighting, and was the generalist on this piece.
It's impressive, and I mean, especially because Google's interest is in using the computers to make the technology better, and this seems to be all about that.
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
And so then you would need to have somebody who can show that in this way to
And get
convince
it done
people.
on
Exactly.
time and get it
Right.
done looking
Right.
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought this was a really impressive piece.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah, so I think this is his latest work, actually.
Yeah. It's funny. The power over Ethernet is interesting because it means you don't have to run a separate power cable,
Mm.
which makes it even easier to wire it. That's just a technical thing, but I had no idea Google was releasing this.
Well, now you know. You
Yes.
heard it here first.
Yes.
And let's try now. This was actually one of my favorites.
Okay.
This is Clotilde Mchugh,
Mhm.
who is now in France.
Yep.
and she is into progressive technical death metal,
Yes.
and
Yeah, she loves metal. That's true.
it's you kind of lose quite a bit by not hearing the sound on this, but it'd be really tough to talk over this one.
Oh yeah, no, no. It's, um, she also has a very recognizable style. Like, what's funny about it is this is clearly her creative work. I can tell, like, this kind of dark, grungy, goth style thing. Though the work she does now, which is very professional, is all like high end graphic design work for the French government. You know what else what's amazing about Clotilda is she lived on her own, and you just don't encounter many people, And I mean, she was 17 or 18, spoke more French than she spoke English, and she moved to West New York, if I remember right, because she would
Wow.
go where she could apartments cheaply.
Well, she tells the story in her bio on the website that she was taking ESL classes at Bergen and happened to be in West Hall and peeked in on Greg Bierman's animation class. And Greg told her, you can come in, and the rest is history, as they say. She came in and
That's
never left.
You see, thank God we have these resources, right? Thank God the state of
Yeah,
New Jersey pays us to animate.
I like the little censored piece over there.
You know what, Clotilda thing, which is interesting, is the masks. Like, this is the first time I've looked at this piece, but a lot of her work has masks covering faces.
Mm-hmm. She repeats that. That's something that you'll see in several of her videos, actually.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, like, I would read deeper into it, but
Like the little cat over the shoulder there.
yes, actually, that's funny. Puppets are a thing. She did some really amazing stop motion animation.
Yes,
Yeah,
very cool.
even here, yeah, she's very
Yeah.
talented.
And let's see, we could pick any number of things from Alex and Dan's work. They're really quite something. I did it.
Yes, yes, they are
I'm not going to show the Michael Jackson because that may get us shut down on the live
copyright
stream,
issues, right?
but we can do, let's see. Let's see. We'll show, this one is a piece that they did for Intel.
Know something about Gonzalez and Davis? They're really high level After Effects artists. Like, they can produce photorealistic scenes in After Effects from just like elements they have lying around on hard drives. And I gotta say, they although this is much more story based than a lot of what, like, I'm used to them being very um, stunning technologically, but I didn't catch the whole, like, there's a narrative in that that's interesting, and I know they'd like to pursue that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's an interesting path where you can go from very high end ads to movies, but it's not easy. But I think they want to try and do it.
They said they filmed this in California. There's a place in the California that is often used to mimic the African savannah, but they brought actors out there. Did
See, I think
on
they have
location.
like, there's several directors. I mean, you could go back as far as like Altman started out doing ads,
Mm-hmm.
um, and of course Michael Cimino, who did Deer Hunter, was the top ad guy
Right.
for a long time. So there's a path to it. It's a very, because again, if you're one other thing about ads, and I don't know if they talked about this, but ads pay more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's hard work because there's a lot of people behind you who would take the job, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the most profitable work you can get. So if you want to say, well, I'm going to take 6 months or a year and risk making a movie and losing all my money versus these high-end commercial things, it's a hard decision to make, though it's one I think that they're leading towards. But
Right. Well, I want you to take a look. I don't know if you've seen this one yet. This is the project they just completed with American Express called Unstage. This was the first one of the series that I believe American Express has asked them to continue. It's called Unstage, Alicia Keys. And with this, they're using an LED XR set
they're using
mapping.
virtual sets, I think, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so there are basically four sides of the stage are LED screens, floor, walls, ceiling. And that is then projected onto they project these environments onto
And they're
those
using
LED screens.
a robotic camera probably to make the camera so that they can track everything
Yes,
together.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know, their embrace of modern technologies is really something. I mean, they're really stretching the limits of what you can do with these things. And that's good. That's what you should be doing. That, you know, I bet Alex was in a class because I used to use this quote by Trent Reznor,
Hmm.
which I really like. He was talking about how he only makes interesting sounds when the machines are just about to crash, and that you're really only using your machines if you're pushing them to the absolute limit, which means they should be crashing.
Exactly.
That's a good sign. If they're not
That's
crashing,
a
it
good
means you're
sign.
not pushing them
Not
as far.
pushing the limits, exactly.
That's right.
Just like a race car driver.
Absolutely, nine
You're not
tenths. You got to
pushing
be
the
way out
limit.
there on the edge.
Right, you got to be.
Yeah.
Well, here's one of our faculty members. This is Stefan Gonzalez,
Yeah.
and he's produced some amazing work. And I learned
Yes.
so much from talking with him about game design, which actually just completely blew me away. So
You
this
know,
is this is a homage that he did for one of his favorite games.
Final Fantasy. Stefan knows more about games than anybody else I know.
So just the detail of this
Yeah.
just absolutely took my breath away. And again, this is just a one person. This is just him doing all of the level design, all of the modeling.
You know, there's a fascinating, I think it's sort of fascinating. Stefan is from DR, and when he was a kid, he was born in Washington Heights when Washington Heights was really bad, and he couldn't go out. So he stayed in and played video games. And we're talking about when he's like, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so like he really lived in a place where it was unsafe at that time. By the time his parents moved to New Jersey, which is I think when he's like 12 or 13, he had been so enmeshed in video games, he really wanted to learn how to make them. We didn't have a program to do it. That's why he ended up in animation. But he kept pursuing, how do you make video games?
Well, he talks about that in the interview I did with him, which also he describes his search for after he left BCC to find a place where he could continue to learn how to make video games. And it took him out to Vancouver because there were like 2 programs in the continental Americas where they were doing anything close to what he wanted to learn.
That's right.
And we're lucky to have him on the faculty now.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, our students are sort of at like, the crux of all modern culture.
Yeah.
Like they're international. They have access to the latest platforms, the latest games. They communicate with people from all over the world. We should have the tools to help them be able to do that. But that means we have to keep up with it. And truthfully, I can't. I try. That's why it's good that there are people who are interested in it and really want to share it just as much as we do.
Well, you can tell if you listen to him talk about it, his passion for this.
Yeah.
It had me hooked. I may be just a little too old to go through all the learning curves it would take to be able to do this, but what was so impressive was learning about all the different elements that are brought to bear in game design, which have to do with everything as basic and fundamental as storyboarding, creating narratives, to then the really hard work of creating these detailed environments in
Mhm.
3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, time-based,
Right.
and then giving the freedom to be able to have live players interacting in real time in these environments. It's just levels of complexity beyond what I'm capable of imagining. That's for sure. But it's
An interesting thing about it to me, Tim, is there's still, like, we talk a lot about that even with stuff exactly like this, where there's VR, there's augmented reality, there's what Dan and Alex are doing, XR, I guess we're calling
yes,
it.
XR set mapping.
And
Yeah.
all these technologies, one of them might be, the next feature film or the next television,
Right. Right.
or
Right.
they might not be.
Right. Right.
And the only way we find out is by playing with them and seeing.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
he tells that to his students. If you want to be a game designer, he says, and I think this would probably come as a deep, deep disappointment to these people, is that you have to play a lot of games. That's what he said.
well,
He leans into the camera and says very earnestly, you have to play a lot of games.
he's right. That's
And he's
absolutely right.
right,
And
right?
it's funny. You even knew, like, from IT, we still get weird resistance, like when we have to buy a laptop and it has to be able to, like, play games, and they get
Right.
really upset. So you're like, no, that it's like, but it's a gaming program. It's supposed to do that. Like, that's what you have to do. It's you have to put yourself in a place to get the
Sure.
technology, but then
Of
you also have to
course.
fight against, like, the currents that are there that say, oh no, that's never going to become anything, and nobody will ever use XR, and maybe they won't, but if they do, I always bring up something like in my own background, which is that when I was in college, I thought rap was a fad. Like, I really did.
Hmm.
And I was into hardcore, but I thought rap would come and go, and I was wrong. I was just straight out wrong, and I admit that freely. And I'm glad that I can say, look, I got that 100% wrong.
Uh-huh.
It's a genre. It's
Yes.
bigger than a genre.
Yes, it is.
But
Yes,
if you don't, like, give it the time of day and try it, you'll never know.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've got quite a bit here for,
Good.
did I miss anybody? I don't think so. I think I got
I
everybody.
got everybody.
So
It's a good show.
yeah, there's a lot there. I think it's a really good sampling too of what the different elements are of the program, and what students are able to get the rudiments of, and what they're able to develop, and how they're
Yeah.
able to move forward. And I think you're right. I think that the part of the lesson is certainly not just learning the software, which, that's like, if you want to learn how to play the saxophone, you have to practice your scales, and there's stuff you have to do to make that happen. But just also, like, becoming a great musician, you have to be around other really good players that push you, and that you can model, that you can then aspire to be like, and have a sense. Also, it's helpful to know that if you're playing in a band, that somebody who used to play, whose chair you're now occupying, is now the lead alto player for the Duke Ellington Orchestra. So then to know that you can, you put in the time you put in your time on your acts, and then you can get there as well. And I think it's really helpful for students to understand that they're in the beginning stages of making a life for themselves, and that this is the stuff that you do. This is what artists do. This is what you do. You struggle for it.
I, you know, I could say with all of those artists that I tried to impart to all of them that they should come back, because I think it's really important for the students now seeing people who, like, wow, look at that. They're at the top of their field, but they're in the exact same seat you're sitting in right now.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing like that as a lesson, as a life lesson. There's nothing like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So you
Well,
build the environment, you build the
yeah,
studio.
yeah. You build the environment. Exactly, exactly. Well, I think you've built a great environment,
Thank you. And I'm glad
and
you can be part of it and join us.
I'm very proud to be so. Well, thank you so much, Francis. This has been a real pleasure, and I'm really grateful for your time.